Horror stories have always been a fascinating topic for many of us. We've all heard those creepy tales that send shivers down our spines. But have you ever stopped to think whether any of those stories are actually based on real events? That's what we're going to explore today. We've all been there, sitting around a campfire or huddled around a flashlight, listening to our friends or family members share their favorite scary stories. But the question remains, are any of those stories actually rooted in reality? It's a challenge to distinguish fact from fiction, especially when it comes to the horror genre. What you're about to read are 3 tales of horror, each crafted to walk the line between believability and the supernatural. 2 of these stories have sprung from imagination, while one is documented in historical records, supported by evidence that exists to this day. The Night Shift takes us into the quiet halls of a senior living facility, where the veil between our world and whatever lies beyond grows tragically thin. Through the eyes of a dedicated night nurse, we witness inexplicable events that challenge our understanding of death and those who might wait to guide us through it. The last podcast delves into the modern world of true crime podcasting, where a mysterious disappearance from 1985 intersects with an equally disturbing contemporary vanishing. It explores how technology might capture things that were never meant to be recorded. The story of Sarah Agnes Peary transports us to Edinburgh in 1901, chronicling the disturbing case of a young woman committed to Craig House Asylum. Her story is filled with phenomena that defied the medical understanding of her time, and perhaps even ours. As you read these tales, consider, which one carries the weight of historical truth? Look for the subtle details, the corroborating evidence, the threads that might anchor a story in reality. Are the most fantastic elements necessarily the most fictional? Sometimes truth can be stranger than any fiction we might devise. The Night Shift at the Oak Ridge Senior Living Center. At the Oak Ridge Senior Living Center, we're required to check on residents every 2 hours during the night shift. It's usually quiet, just the hum of medical equipment and occasional murmurs from sleeping residents. That changed during my shift on October 12, 2019. Around 2 a.m., I was doing my rounds when I heard Mrs. Henderson calling from room 214. She'd been with us for 3 years, suffering from advanced dementia, but generally peaceful. When I entered, she was sitting upright, staring at her window with unusual clarity in her eyes. "They're watching again," she whispered, pointing to the window. "They come every night now." I assured her no one was there, but she grabbed my wrist with surprising strength. "Not people," she said. "The others. They're hungry." To humor her, I checked the window. What I saw made my blood run cold. 3 sets of glowing eyes peered in from the darkness, floating about 7 feet off the ground. They weren't reflecting light, they were emitting it. A pale, sickly blue glow that seemed to pulse gently. As I watched, they began to move closer. I quickly drew the curtains and called security. By the time they arrived, the eyes were gone. We found nothing outside. No ladder, no evidence anyone had been there. Just 3 circular patches where the grass had withered and died. Over the following week, 7 other residents on the 2nd floor reported seeing the same eyes. Each time, they appeared around 2 a.m. Security cameras showed nothing but strange orbs of light. Then, as suddenly as it started, the sightings stopped. The residents who saw the eyes all reported the same details. 3 sets, glowing blue, accompanied by a deep sense of hunger that wasn't their own. Previously passive residents became agitated, speaking in languages they'd never known, reciting dates and names that, when we researched them, belonged to people who had died in the building years before. Our facility director called in various experts, a psychologist suggesting mass hysteria, an electrician blaming faulty wiring, even a priest who left rather quickly and refused to return our calls. Mrs. Henderson maintained her unusual clarity until the end. She started telling me things during my rounds, specific details about my life she couldn't have known. She mentioned my sister's miscarriage, which I hadn't told anyone at work about. She described my childhood home in perfect detail. When I asked her how she knew these things, she just smiled and said, "They showed me. They show me everything now." Mrs. Henderson passed away peacefully in her sleep the next month. In her final moments, she was completely lucid and told me something I'll never forget. "They were waiting for me, but I wasn't ready then. I am now. They're not evil, dear. They're just different. They feed on the transition, you see. Not death itself, but that moment between life and death. That's why they come here. That's why they'll keep coming." She gripped my hand tightly. "Promise me you'll understand when it's your time. Promise me you'll go willingly. Fighting only makes it worse." Those were her last words. The heart monitor flatlined exactly at 3:33 a.m. To this day, no one has explained what happened during those nights. Some say it was mass hysteria, others blame faulty security cameras or bad wiring. The official report cited unknown environmental factors and group psychological response to grief. But I know what I saw. Sometimes on quiet nights, I still catch myself checking the windows during my rounds. And when the temperature suddenly drops, or when the security cameras glitch. I remember Mrs. Henderson's last words. I wonder if they're still watching, still waiting, still hungry. Last week, I noticed 3 patches of dead grass outside the window of room 214. The new resident there, Mr. Collins, has started speaking Latin in his sleep. The last podcast by Alex Gray at the Dark Room. I love true crime podcasts, especially ones about unsolved cases. That's how I found The Dark Room, a small independent podcast hosted by someone calling themselves Alex Gray. The show focused on lesser-known cold cases, but there was something different about episode 47. The episode began with Alex discussing the 1985 disappearance of college student Jennifer Walsh. The case wasn't well known. Jennifer had vanished during a road trip, last seen at a gas station in rural Montana. Her car was found abandoned, but extensive searches revealed nothing. About halfway through, Alex's voice changed subtly as they described visiting Jennifer's last known location. The gas station had been abandoned since the early 1990s. It stood empty along a stretch of highway that had been rerouted years ago. "I'm actually recording this from the gas station right now," Alex said. "The place has been empty for decades, but locals say they sometimes see lights inside at night. I had to see for myself." The audio quality shifted, becoming rawer with background static. Alex's footsteps echoed as they described entering the building. Then came a sound that made me freeze, a distant female voice calling, "Hello?" Alex's breathing quickened. "Is someone there?" Their footsteps stopped. A door creaked somewhere in the building. The woman's voice came again closer. "I've been waiting for someone to find me." What followed was 2 minutes of running, heavy breathing, and Alex repeating, "This isn't possible," over and over. The woman's voice kept getting closer, her words becoming distorted, as if playing backward. The final 30 seconds contained something unexplainable. Under Alex's panicked breathing, you could hear what sounded like a radio playing snippets of news reports from 1985, overlapping, but each perfectly clear. The episode ended with Alex's scream, not of terror, but of recognition. "Jennifer," they gasped, and then silence. No new episodes were ever released. Within days, the podcast disappeared from all platforms. The website went dark. The forum where fans discussed episodes vanished. Even the social media accounts were deleted. I tried researching Alex Gray, but found nothing. The gas station was real, though. I checked. It stood abandoned until 2020, when it burned down mysteriously at exactly 3:33 a.m. I've searched for others who heard episode 47, but every fan of the show I've contacted only remembers 46 episodes. Some get angry when I mention the 47th, insisting I'm mistaken. Others simply don't respond. 3 months ago, I found episode 47 still saved on my phone. Excited to finally have proof, I tried to play it. The file was there, showing a length of 47 minutes and 33 seconds, but contained only static. Except, at exactly 33 minutes in, for just a moment, a voice breaks through clearly. "I've been waiting for someone to find me. Keep looking." I researched Jennifer Walsh's disappearance more thoroughly after that. Most of the original police files were destroyed in a courthouse flood in 1999. But I did find one detail in an old newspaper archive. Jennifer had been an aspiring journalist, interested in paranormal phenomena. In her last diary entry, found in her abandoned car, she wrote about investigating local legends of time slips, places where people reported experiencing moments from the past or future. Sometimes I wonder if I imagined it all, but late at night, I can still hear that voice. I've been waiting for someone to find me. I've started recording my own podcast about unsolved cases. Nothing unusual has happened yet, but I keep thinking about Alex's last scream, that moment of recognition. What did they find in that abandoned gas station? Or maybe the real question is, when did they find it? The story of Sarah Agnes Peary and the Craig House Asylum in Edinburgh. Sarah came from a prominent Edinburgh family. Her father was a successful merchant, and her mother belonged to the influential Macpherson clan. Their wealth meant they could afford private care. At Craig House, then Scotland's most prestigious asylum, Sarah was admitted for religious mania after claiming she could see demons possessing people. Dr. James Morrison, her primary physician, kept meticulous records that survive today. Initially, he prescribed the standard treatments, rest, isolation, and laudanum. The first 3 weeks were unremarkable. Then things changed dramatically. It started with the night staff. 3 nurses independently reported hearing strange chanting from Sarah's room, though she appeared to be sleeping when they checked. 2 nurses, Mary Campbell and Elizabeth Duncan, resigned within days of each other, breaking their contracts. Nurse Campbell's written statement, preserved in the archives, reads, "What I witnessed in Miss Peary's room defies both medical science and Christian understanding. May God have mercy on those who remain." Other patients began reporting disturbing phenomena. Multiple residents described seeing black shadows entering and leaving Sarah's room at night. Dr. Morrison documented strange burns appearing on Sarah's skin while she slept, forming patterns resembling ancient Celtic runes. More disturbingly, he recorded instances where objects in Sarah's room moved without explanation. sometimes violently enough to shatter against walls. The case attracted attention from the Edinburgh Medical Society. A committee of doctors began regular observations. This led to some of the most well-documented supernatural phenomena in British medical history. They recorded instances of Sarah speaking fluently in ancient Greek and Hebrew, languages she had never studied. During one session, she accurately described the death of a committee member's father in London, which was later confirmed by telegram. The most dramatic incident occurred during a formal observation by 4 medical professionals. Sarah experienced a seizure during which she levitated 4 feet off her bed for approximately 7 minutes. The event was witnessed by all present and independently documented in their records. Everything culminated on November 15, 1901. According to official records, staff heard screaming from Sarah's room at 3:17 a.m. When they entered, they found her convulsing, with words in an unknown language appearing as raised welts on her skin. She died at 3:33 a.m., with the official cause listed as heart failure. Dr. Morrison's final notes read, "I no longer believe Miss Peary was insane. She saw something real, something that followed her here. Heaven help us if it remained after her death." The aftermath was equally disturbing. Craig House experienced 27 patient deaths in the year following Sarah's death, compared to an average of 4 per year previously. The official explanation cited tuberculosis, but internal documents suggest otherwise. Several deceased patients had exhibited symptoms similar to Sarah's before their deaths. The asylum closed in 1904 after a series of unexplained incidents. During its demolition in 1927, workers discovered strange symbols carved into the foundation stones beneath Sarah's former room. These symbols matched those that had appeared on her skin. In 2019, during renovation work on the site, construction workers uncovered a sealed chamber beneath the original foundations. Inside, they found a journal believed to belong to Sarah Peary. The journal remains under review by historians, but initial reports suggest it contains detailed prophecies, some of which appear to describe events that occurred long after her death. The journal is scheduled for public release in 2025. Now that you've watched all 3 stories, let's reveal which one is anchored in historical fact. The Night Shift combines elements familiar to anyone who has worked in elder care. The quiet halls, the connection with patients, the thin line between life and death that exists in such places. While compelling, its supernatural elements are crafted to echo common themes in modern ghost stories. The last podcast plays with contemporary fears about technology and disappearances, weaving them together with the timeless human desire to solve mysteries. Its structure deliberately uses modern elements, podcast platforms, digital archives, online communities, to create verisimilitude. But it's the true story of Sarah Agnes Peary that carries the weight of historical truth. The details of her case remain preserved in the National Archives of Scotland, including Dr. Morrison's meticulous notes and the witness statements from medical professionals who observed her supernatural manifestations. The Craig House Asylum existed, and its records document the unusual events surrounding Sarah's stay and death. The symbols found during the building's demolition in 1927 are photographed and preserved in Edinburgh's historical archives. What makes Sarah's story particularly compelling is not just its documented nature, but how it challenged the scientific and religious understanding of its time. The medical professionals who witnessed these events risked their reputations by documenting what they saw, yet felt compelled to create an official record. Their detailed accounts, written in the precise language of Victorian medicine, stand as testimony to events they could neither explain nor deny. While The Night Shift and the last podcast draw on familiar elements of horror storytelling, Sarah Agnes Peary's case remains a unique chapter in British medical history, one that continues to challenge our understanding of reality's boundaries. The recent discovery of her journal during the 2019 construction work has only added to the mystery, though we'll have to wait until 2025 for its public release to potentially reveal more insights into this remarkable case. Sometimes the truth is more haunting than fiction, leaving us to question not just what we believe, but what beliefs we might need to abandon in the face of well-documented impossibilities. If you want to explore more horror-related content, check out our other videos and don't forget to like and subscribe for more spine-chilling content.